This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Hi, this is Joe. Going to give you a stock market update. We're going to talk about this market's been pretty stubborn in terms of not giving up any ground. So let's see what that means in terms of the potential upside from here, especially if we can get through a key level. And then what kind of risks are involved based on this whole setup right now. All right, so let's go ahead and get into that. Before we do, if you have an interest in learning more about these techniques, especially related to multiple time frame trading with MACD and ADX, you can go to rabilstockresearch.com/book. I think this is a good place to start. If you enjoy the content also, will you please hit that like button and also subscribe? Okay, so I like to start down at the bottom here with sentiment, and there really wasn't much of a change. We've been kind of lingering here. It was really high. The number of bulls minus the bears was really high at this peak up here. And then as we dropped down, it got down very, very low. So just to give you an idea, the number of bulls minus the bears was up around 47 here, and then it dropped down to about 10 here in a very short period of time. I highlighted the fact that I thought that was a bullish sign, or at least should minimize any kind of downside risk. And we've gotten a little bit of a rally off that. This hasn't really changed. I'm still going to keep this in the positive camp. It hasn't really reversed. Probably more neutral, just based on the timing of it. But if this works its way into the 20s, mid-20s, something like that, I'll put it in the neutral camp. The overbought, oversold oscillator, short-term RSI is up around 66 for the S&P, SPY. Getting closer to overbought, but not there quite yet. When we look at the volatility on the weekly is still rising. Volatility on the daily is now dropping. I'll go into that in a sec. And then when we look at the trend and the momentum, the trends are all positive on a monthly, weekly, daily, and then the momentum is positive on the monthly. And as we've seen for about the last month, the weekly and the daily are both at neutral right now. All right, let's start going through these. So you can see right off the bat what's taken place here. We've had a significant amount of volatility with a lot of gaps, a lot of movement, a lot of big bars. But it's been resilient, and we are now on the cusp of really kind of breaking out after forming a low here and then a higher low here and now another higher low here at the 600 mark, right? So I think there's a pretty good chance this is going to try and push through. I'll go into that in a minute when I switch over to the other charts. But I wanted to point out we've still got a rising 18 MA of the average true range. So this 18 MA isn't of the price pattern, it's of the average true range, and it's still rising. And that's very important. The way I look at it is as long as this line is rising, we have to sort of assume that volatility is going up, because we can get some kind of volatile price action when it comes to the actual line itself. So I'd still constitute this as a negative, but as I've been saying, if you're on the lookout for, there's a lot of market rotation in terms of stocks, and there's a lot of stocks that look like they're moving independently of the market. They don't look exactly like the S&P, so that's okay to consider. When it comes to daily, we've actually seen this line roll over. We're kind of working our way down now. So I think that improves the odds of a shorter term move. We're not really in a position for a long-term move, and you can see that we've already been moving up for quite some time. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to start another monster move unless we make a little bit more of a sideways consolidation and create a low ADX condition, which we don't have quite yet. All right, let's switch over to this, because I think, we're dealing with the same issues, right? We're kind of pushing higher. We've got, we're extended away from the 18-month line, but doesn't seem quite ready to pull back. We've got pretty good momentum conditions in place here on this time frame, in this time frame only, really. When we look at the weekly chart, we've MACD is trying, it looks like it's trying to turn, like it might want to make another push to the upside, but I think it's going to have a very hard time exceeding this prior peak from last year. So we could see this recross the signal line, but I have a hard time believing we're going to make it to a new high unless this is the start of a big monster move. If it is, I'm not going to fight it. But we're going to start with the shorter term time frames and evaluate the momentum, and then see if it can spill over into this time frame. So I don't really have to be a genius in this situation and determine right now whether this is going to take off. I think you want to minimize your risk in any trading that you're doing right now. And if it turns into something bigger, that's great. If not, then you've kind of protected yourself. When we look at the daily chart now, I mean, you can see the MACD is actually in a decent position here. It has held its signal line. It's not that far away from the zero line. I could see this moving up. I don't think this has gone sideways long enough to create a low ADX condition, and neither has the, well, this has actually, it's been low for quite some time, but we don't have a pattern in place. It's been moving upward. You see what I mean? So we would need this to go sideways from this point here. So if I just draw this in, so this is the last peak. If we were to draw in and be able to connect some trend lines, if this were to drop down and do this, and we created 25, at least 25 bars going sideways with this low, then we'd have a low ADX condition in place. We don't have that here, and we don't have that here. So it still kind of qualifies as kind of a low ADX kind of failure, right? It hit a new high here, we didn't confirm, and now we're consolidating. Now, the interesting thing is that if we look at this on an hourly, we can scroll back and we can see that we have had a low ADX condition for a very long period of time. And we can draw trend lines, kind of go right across the top here. And again, I've been talking about this 6,100 level in the S&P, which is essentially, 610 in the spider. And I think if we break that, I mean, we can sort of look at this and say, it looks kind of like a ascending triangle, right? This there. If I draw this here, and we've got this ascending triangle on this time frame, and we have a low ADX condition. So when I look at it, I'd say, okay, we have a low ADX condition, but it's on the hourly chart, and that could create a move of a week or two, right? We could get a nice pop to the upside based on the low ADX pattern on the hourly, but I wouldn't consider these to be breakout setups on the monthly, the weekly, or the daily, right? But we could have some continuation. We've got a little bit of a pattern here, almost like a little mini inverted head and shoulders pattern on the daily chart that could lead to another move to the upside. So I would view it more as a short-term oriented signal unless we see a significant amount of strength in the momentum on these time frames. And if we switch these to positive, then we probably have to give this a little bit more respect. But in the meantime, I think you'd want to be playing more for shorter term targets and that kind of thing. I don't think I would be playing for this to be a big move. Make sure if you're playing any longer term trades that you're doing something that doesn't look like the S&P, right? That it looks more like a emerging pattern. I think you'd have a lot more luck in that type of trade. All right, let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you next time.